But right now, I want to bring you a bit of breaking news that will have a global significance and a global resonance. And that is the former US Vice-President Dick Cheney has died at the age of 84. So former US Vice-President Dick Cheney has died at the age of 84. That has been confirmed in a family statement. So we don't have any more details of that family statement right now, but we will have shortly plenty of details and indeed plenty of reaction around the world, no doubt, because the influence of Dick Cheney on global events is difficult to be overstated. He served as America's 46th vice president. That was under George W. Bush. That was 2001 to 2009. So a really significant figure in US politics for decades, and for US and global politics, particularly for that decade. He was, of course, a key architect of the so-called war on terror after 9/11, an early supporter of the invasion of Iraq, and as such became a hugely divisive figure in global geopolitics. He had the support and backing of many in US politics, in the Republican Party especially, during his time and term in office. But the subsequent way, the fallout from the Iraq invasion, the fallout from those search for WMD's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. He was a supporter of that claim, and that was subsequently found to be not true. So just some details from that family. He was 84 years old. The family statement just saying that he died last night, and we are waiting for more details on that. He was 84 years old. We understand it was complications of pneumonia, one of the causes of death last night for the 84-year-old Dick Cheney. Now, as for the legacy, well, he worked a storied political career, very successful political career within the Republican Party, rising up through the ranks, winning elected office. He worked for a Republican congressman. He worked eventually for President Gerald Ford. He became a congressman for a decade for Wyoming. And then his big break, his rise to national and more international prominence was President George H.W. Bush made him Defense Secretary. And as Defense Secretary, that's when he had to handle the first Gulf War, after Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, of course. And then when George W. Bush needed a vice presidential candidate later on, Cheney actually chaired the search committee to try and find one, but ended up doing the job himself. And then the events of 9/11, the attack on US soil. And after that attack, he defended the subsequent events. So that was the claim that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. He defended also waterboarding as an interrogation technique after 9/11. And there were geopolitical fallout, of course, from those momentous events in Iraq after the war there. After that, he went on to have some health problems. He had a heart transplant in 2012. As he got older, he became, even though he was a lifelong Republican and viewed by many on the right of the Republican Party, but he then went on to become a big critic of Donald Trump. He didn't fall into line like many senior Republicans did and have. He maintained himself as a critic of Donald Trump. He thought that Donald Trump was undermining institutions like NATO, and the fact that Donald Trump refused to accept the outcome of the 2020 election as well. Now, it is a political family as well of Dick Cheney. He has his eldest daughter, Liz, another anti-Trump member of Congress for many years, and his younger daughter, Mary, entered a gay marriage, which led to Dick Cheney then supporting that move. So Dick Cheney just announced in the last few minutes that confirmation from a family statement that he has died at the age of 84. We understand he died last night through complications of pneumonia as one of the potential causes of death at 84 years old. A remarkable and at times incredibly divisive political career. He supported Republican members of Congress, he worked for Republican presidents, and he became vice president himself and came to dominate the geopolitics of that age. He was one of the key architects of war in Iraq, the response of the US to the 9/11 terror attacks on its soil. He retained the popularity of many within America, especially many Republicans during that time and afterwards. However, in other parts of the world more directly impacted by US military action, he became a much more divisive character. He was extraordinarily well known and well connected within the Republican Party, serving for generations and decades. And there will be many who point to his skill in roles such as Chief of Staff, his skill in terms of basic politics and pure politics and Republican Party politics. And indeed, there is no doubting a man of true influence and significance the early part of this century. We will be expecting now, of course, plenty of reaction, not just from the US, but from right around the world. It is still, of course, relatively early there in the US. So what is it, 11:30 here in London, so 5 hours earlier Eastern time in America. So it's clearly quite early in the morning, and we understand from sources that he died last night, American time, at the age of 84. The end to a remarkable life and at times divisive career, but a remarkable life, and also in a way the establishment of another political dynasty family, with daughter joining him in politics, daughter joining him in the Republican Party politics, and also joining him in the critical role of criticising Donald Trump, as they saw, him and his daughter, many senior Republicans of their generation who had been early critics of Donald Trump. Lots of them changed their mind, fell into line, as many saw it, abandoned some of those core Republican conservative beliefs to adopt the Donald Trump agenda, but not so the former US Vice-President Dick Cheney, and not so Liz, both of them powerful and relatively rare critics of the new Donald Trump Republican Party, modelled in the image of MAGA and Donald Trump, rather than traditional Republican Party voters across the country.